Hey everyone, Codex here. Today what we're gonna do is take a look at Bitcoin and we're going to be discussing the worst case scenario for us in terms of price action if we enter a prolonged bear market. So if that's something you are interested in and you find these videos helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video and click on that bell icon so you get notified when I upload a new video. Also make sure to join our Telegram channel and let's get into this one. Now, since our all-time high at 69k, Bitcoin hasn't really been doing much other than trending down, and as of the time we are recording this video, the price is down about 44% from the peak, and we were down roughly 52% a month ago. And the issue now is that a lot of people are confused on what may happen next, and there is a lot of speculation about Bitcoin's bottom. Some are calling for a 10k BTC, others are calling for a 20k BTC, and some are even claiming that 33k was already our bottom and Bitcoin will go much higher moving forward. Now, since 2015, Bitcoin has recorded its bottom 3 times at the 200 weeks moving average, meaning that every time Bitcoin entered a prolonged bear market or experienced a massive correction, our bottom was at the 200 weeks moving average, and this happened every single time after not managing to hold the first line of defense, which is the 50 weeks MA. If we go all the way back to 2014-2015 after our peak at about 1,150 USD, Bitcoin started trending down and we ended up dropping all the way down to our 50 weeks moving average, where we found our first line of defense that offered a good basis for a decent bounce back up. But a few months later, BTC had to retest the line and it couldn't manage to hold it, and we ended up going all the way down to the 200 weeks moving average. The same exact thing happened in 2018. You can clearly see that BTC has tested the 50 weeks MA, bounced back up from it in the first occasion of course, and we ended up experiencing some relief for a while. However, weeks later we came in again to retest the support line, and unfortunately for us, Bitcoin couldn't manage to hold it. And we ended up going all the way down to the 200 weeks moving average at about 3,100 USD, and 2020 wasn't any different, although we went below the 200 weeks moving average, and we can technically speaking still say that our bottom was more or less at around our MA. And this market cycle, in my humble opinion, is slowly starting to look similar to what we experienced in the past. Bitcoin rallied from $3,000 all the way up to 63k in the first time, and as it went out of fuel, the price started to decline and we ended up heading towards the first line of defense, which, as we mentioned previously, is the 50 weeks moving average, where we bounced back up to record a second all-time high at 69k before coming in here again to retest it, and unfortunately for us again, we couldn't manage to hold it and we ended up trending below. And for me, the worst case scenario would be to drop all the way down to the 200 weeks moving average, which is currently at 20k based on what we have seen in the last 3 times of course. Now, this doesn't necessarily imply that we must visit the moving average, but I would say that the odds are pretty much high. Another thing to keep in mind is that our line goes up and its value keeps increasing, and that's why we have these projection lines. So by the end of this year, if we keep trending this way of course, our orange line would be at approximately 29k, so it won't be at 20k anymore. By mid-2022, it will be at 25k, so it really depends on how long it takes us to trend down and to find our bottom, if this bearish momentum continues, as I said. But I would say that us bottoming around this line would be likely to happen. Moving on to the Bitcoin bands, and this is another indicator that I've developed myself, which you can get for free by joining our Telegram channel. You will find it pinned alongside to the risk metrics and the logarithmic indicator. Now, the Bitcoin bands are famous and there is a free model, but this one is slightly different as I included the March crash as the bottom and 63k as our peak. So based on the Bitcoin bands, you can see that every market cycle's bottom was in the lower green band. In 2012, our bottom was in here, where we spent a significant amount of time. In 2015 and 2016, our bottom was also in the lower green band. And 2018 wasn't any different, although it was brief, I can't deny that. It was very brief and short, and we barely went in it, but it doesn't matter as the price spent some time in here. And the last time we visited our lower bands, it was in March of 2020 following the crash. Now, as of this week, the upper part of our lower band is at about 23,500, and similar to the 200 weeks MA, the lower bands and also upper bands that we are not going to use this video keep increasing in value. So by the time we reach it, it could be much higher. I sadly didn't create projections for this indicator yet, but we can still draw some lines. I know it's not supposed to be a straight line, but it's not the end of the world. And look, based on this, our bottom should be somewhere in here. And again, if we get our bottom by December of this year, for example, then it could be between 22 and 38K. I also know that this is a big range for some, but you have to keep in mind that we develop these indicators to help us. I developed this model alongside to the risk metric, the logarithmic indicator, and other models that I have for myself. So in my opinion, if 2022 ends up being a bad year for the cryptocurrency asset, then I would expect us to find our bottom somewhere in here between 22 and 27K, which will mean a correction of about 65% from the peak. Do I think a 10K Bitcoin is likely to happen? Not really. Look, it's possible, okay? We don't know what we don't know until we know it, right? And back in 2018, nobody thought that we will go from 20K to 3K. When I remember that, I laugh because nobody really thought that we will go nobody thought that we will go down 83 or 84%. But you have to be ready for everything. For me, us going to 10K would require a lot of downward pressure. So it can happen, but it's just unlikely. Can 33K be our bottom, like many are suggesting? Sure, it can be, although I doubt it, but yeah, that can be it, and bears will end up getting wrecked and bullied. But to me, if we get the March rate hikes and Putin goes nuts and we keep having this bearish momentum, then it's possible to go sub 30K and perhaps even below 25K. Another thing I want to cover up briefly is the fair value line. The current Bitcoin fair value line is at 35K, and historically speaking, in every bear market, the price ends up dropping between 40 and 50% below it. Now, we aren't below it, of course, but if we trend up below it and go down by 40% like in the past, then a 20K BTC is very likely. I'm really not gonna go in depth about this indicator as we made a full video about it in the past. That was a month or a month and a half ago, and we discuss it every single time in the Telegram channel. But in my opinion, going below the fair value won't end up good. So as I said, with these three indicators that we have discussed, the 200 weeks moving average, the fair value line, and the Bitcoin bands, our bottom, if this bearish trend continues, of course, and if the bearish momentum continues and follows up, then our bottom would be between 22 to 27K, I would say. So that was about it, guys, for today. Thanks for sticking by till the end. Don't forget to leave the video a thumbs up. Make sure to leave a comment if you feel comfortable doing so, of course. Have a nice day and peace.